I just saw the Masters of the Universe movie, and it is pretty good. I had a really good time with it. This is the spoiler-free video. I'll probably do a spoiler one of these, but for now, I just want to talk generally. This is the answer to the question, should you see the He-Man movie this week? Also, my cat Mortimer crawling all over my lap during this recording. I'm very close to having everything set up so that I can be on camera for one of the next videos. And I'm sure for that one you will see Mortimer, my cat who loves to sit on my lap when I'm making these videos, and sometimes if he's not getting enough attention, give me bites. And he loved this movie because it had a big green cat in it named Battle Cat, and he's the Bite'll cat because he loves to bite. Alright, so right up front, I'm not a humongous He-Man fan. I have not watched most of the new shows, seen bits and pieces, and I know the character generally. I'm honestly a bigger fan of the action figures and the designs because they are incredibly iconic. But I do not have the kind of fondness for these characters that I do for like X-Men or something like that. That being said, I guess through cultural osmosis, I do know who most of them are, which I do think helped me enjoy this movie. But Masters of the Universe, the one from 2026, not the one from the 80s, I think successfully does a lot of work to both bring new audiences up to speed on what all of this is, and reward audience members who watch all these shows and own all the toys. It's a very good balance. And I would say this is one of those movies where I cannot even give any one person or team the credit. Everything in this movie, I think, works. Is it the greatest movie ever made? No. But it is, as far as I can remember, like the best summer blockbuster I've seen since like Guardians of the Galaxy. In terms of well-visualized, well-choreographed action that is both fun for everyone and also has a heart. Filled with performances that are all between doing exactly what they need to do to make this character work and being an incredibly memorable, campy version of this character. But either way, nobody's phoning it in. I would say it's really hard to pick one standout. And I think when people pick this thing as their standout, it tends to be like damning with faint praise. A lot of people said the Mandalorian and Grogu movie wasn't great, but that score was really something, which I agree. The score for Mandalorian and Grogu is very good. I think this score by Daniel Pemberton is great. The music of this movie in general, it feels so true to the aesthetic of He-Man, which is very difficult to pin down because he is both a barbarian king guy in a universe with magic and robots and spaceships. So it blends all that together really well and keeps a lot of the fun 80s excitement of what people remember from the old He-Man cartoons. Manages to weave that into something that sounds epic at every point. But I guess we have to start with things that are great. It's a pretty well-written movie in terms of, like I said, being very economical, giving the audience a lot of information. But not in a way that feels like we're reading a Wikipedia page. Every bit of exposition also comes with a bit of personality, which is the way you make that work. And I think a lot of the things this movie does just conceptually are clever. I remember originally when they started filming this movie, seeing some shots of Adam and Teela being filmed in a city and thinking, oh no, why is this another He-Man movie that takes place on Earth? Because as of this recording, I have not watched the Dolph Lundgren movie, but I know that's something everybody hates about it. And I think what's so fun about Masters of the Universe 2026 is it does that same thing, sets a bit of the movie on Earth, but the movie uses that time to help both ground the character and give us some perspective on the rest of the world. Now, I will say, what I think is most fun about this movie, the things I really can't talk about, not in the spoiler video, but I'll say this. As the movie went on, I was a little confused. What are they trying to say? What is this movie getting at? Because sure, it's a He-Man movie about believing in yourself and whatever, but what is it saying about being a man? Because early in the movie, characters have a lot to say. Then as the movie goes on, I feel like, okay, we're exploring this a little bit. But I was kind of worried going into the third act that it was not going to come together thematically. Like, I did not think we would be able to merge these parts of Adam's upbringing with the values of humanity. But the script for Masters of the Universe, I would say, really cleverly does bring all of that together. Where it feels like it does have something to say. Again, not the most profound thing ever said, but like as good as you could ever hope one of these would be. And I think a lot of that credit goes to Travis Knight, who most people probably know as being part of Laika, produced Paranorman, The Box Trolls Missing Link, directed Kubo and the Two Strings, but then, I feel like most interestingly, directed the Bumblebee movie, which is kind of like this for Transformers. Like, Transformers is a dumb franchise. It had a decade of dumb movies that were fun, admittedly, some of them. But in a moment where the franchise was in sort of crisis, they had to take a step back and say, what is essential about the Transformers? What is the most fun about these guys? Visually, emotionally, what can a great Transformers story be? And out of that, we got Bumblebee. And I think a very similar ethos went into Masters of the Universe, because this is as good as a Masters of the Universe movie can possibly be. Now, I do think the casting for this movie is pretty incredible, obviously, minus one, who we'll talk about. But without getting into every single character, let's just say the top four. Nicholas Galitzini, really good. Looks perfect. His Prince Adam energy is very weird. And it's very silly, and it doesn't always fully work. Like, every kind of doofusy joke isn't executed perfectly, it feels like. However, that's kind of the charm of this movie played out through this character. Adam is not only an imperfect person, but he's also kind of an imperfect, messy protagonist. By the end of the movie, I do think it all really comes together in terms of like his emotional journey, but also just the humor of the movie. It does feel like over time gets into a rhythm that totally works. Camila Mendes played Tila. I liked her on that Riverdale show. They gave her like an emotional arc. They gave her things she cared about. She had some cool fight scenes. Then you got Idris Elba playing Man-at-Arms. He was great. First of all, Man-at-Arms gets like a couple of the best action sequences in the movie, which he should. He's Man-at-Arms. He's the main warrior for the king. I think his character arc is the one that, for me, when it resolved itself, went, okay, this movie knows what it's doing. I also think the way that they translated his armor looks very cool. And then the fourth lead of the movie, the secret fourth lead, if you were just watching trailers, Jared Leto as Skeletor. I made a whole video on my Nando V Movies channel about why I think they should replace him. I stand by all of it. His Skeletor is real fun. Now, I think any actor could do this. I think the choices about how Skeletor is written are very strong. There are some flourishes that maybe you can attribute to Leto. I think this version of the character is great. I still think we could recast him with another actor with a little bit of sass and get very similar results. But hey, that's assuming we get a sequel, which who knows. I'll say the rest of the Eternia crew, very fun. You get a couple of the named He-Man friends that people who are familiar with the shows and really the toys will recognize. Skeletor has a bunch of villains, really all the ones you would expect to see or hear. And that goes to maybe like the third pillar of why this works. So first pillar, writing, directing. Second pillar, I think the casting's great. Third pillar, I think this movie looks really good. Does it look good? Not really. Like, it doesn't look as good as something like, let's say, Dune. But the impression that I get from watching this movie and rewatching the trailers, it's like they went for it when it came to designing Eternia, when it came to designing all of the characters, when it came to designing Castle Grayskull, or the forests, or the ships. I feel bad comparing Supergirl to every movie. However, and this might be like a controversial opinion, without having seen Supergirl, to be fair, but having read the book and being familiar with the visuals that inspired Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, and not really getting the sense that that's being translated into the movie, I don't think it needs to look exactly like this, but this visual ambition, I think, needs to be what I'm seeing in Supergirl. Like, I need them to have tried to make just an orange jungle planet that they end up on for a little bit. So that's why, like, not every design choice looks great. Most of it doesn't look real, but it's the right kind of unreal. And again, you give them credit for going for it. Two last things, and these are important. First one, it's very funny. The movie has a lot of jokes. I do think Guardians of the Galaxy is a good comparison. I don't think it's quite as funny as Guardians of the Galaxy, but my theater was loving it. And like, most of the jokes were hitting. I think a lot of that comes down to the charm of Nicholas Galitzini and the campiness of pretty much everybody from Eternia, besides maybe Tila. Not that she did a bad job, but like, what Alison Brie is doing in this movie is bizarre. Like, Jared Leto is doing a very 2010s ironic version of this villain, who talks about liking to be a villain, monologuing. It's kind of self-aware in a way that totally works. Evelyn is his right-hand woman. She's played by Alison Brie. Alison Brie plays Evelyn like she is on a soap opera, and I loved it. But everybody is going all out in some direction that makes pretty much all of this movie watchable. I'll say there's one character that was pretty present in the marketing that I do kind of feel like got lost in the shuffle, but I don't care because they're not that important. My main other thought coming out of this movie is like, man, this is a pretty gay movie. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. And He-Man has always kind of been a gay icon. Now, I think that's great. Pride Month just started. And without the character of He-Man, like, explicitly being gay in the movie, which he is not. I think this is really going to hit with a crowd that is looking for something like that. However, I think what's so kind of clever about this movie is that I don't think it's going to alienate the tough macho guys who want to see He-Man beat up Skeletor. I think this strikes a really effective balance. And I know I'm not describing it super well. It's because I don't want to point out specific jokes or like moments that I think play pretty well in the movie. But interesting that they decided to release it during Pride Month. Good for them. I have one huge bone to pick with the movie, but that will be for the spoiler conversation about He-Man, because there's just one thing that I'm like, oh, they got that wrong. And there was clearly a way to do it. But that's a little tease for the spoiler conversation. But like overall, I think this movie is fun. I think it's got just enough heart. I don't think it's like reinventing the wheel in a lot of ways, but I do feel like it is succeeding at everything it's trying to do. This is a movie that knows exactly what it is. And if you're trying to be a summer blockbuster, that might be the most important part of the whole formula. I don't know if this movie is going to make money. I do feel like positive word of mouth is going to help. We'll see. It's expensive. On the other hand, if this does hit even a little bit and it manages to sell toys, that could also be enough, I'm hoping, to justify a sequel, because the movie does leave some threads open for a sequel, and I'd like to see where they go with it. But like, I cannot imagine a better version of a movie like this that does so much justice to the He-Man characters, mythology, everything that people love about He-Man, while also being completely accessible for a new audience. And coming out of this movie, I really am annoyed that Jared Leto played Skeletor, because his character is so fun. And like a solid visualization of that character, he looks cool. He looks scary. The skull head, his weird ripped body, it's very effectively evil, which is important because he's kind of the devil of the He-Man universe. Like, there's probably an actual devil figure. Like I said, I'm not a big He-Man fan. At least I wasn't before. I might be now. But, you know, demons, devils, all that stuff, it gets complicated. It reminds me of a video I watched recently called The Modern Devil. It's part of Curious Archive's Gods and Monsters series. It just talks about how the devil evolved from a figure in religious mythology to a pop culture figure. And it's interesting to look back at how much of the foundations of that character have nothing to do with religion. If you want to watch this video, along with all my videos early and ad-free, you should check out this video's sponsor, Nebula. Nebula is a subscription streaming platform that I and a bunch of other YouTubers you probably already love helped to create. First thing that's important, all of our videos go up there early and ad-free. So if you want to be the first person to see one of my Nando V movies or Nando Cut videos, Nebula is for you. This video was on Nebula months ago. And then there are series like Jetlag or Tom Scott's England, where they go up on Nebula a week before they go anywhere else. Then we also have Nebula exclusive series of videos, like Tom Nicholas has a series called Slow News Day. Captain Midnight has a series called Showrunners, where he looks at different people that have created television shows. The first episode is about Rod Serling in The Twilight Zone. The second episode is about Vince Gilligan in Breaking Bad. Looks at the journey of how they got to where they were and how that shaped the series they would showrun. And then Curious Archive's Gods and Monsters series looks at these different legendary creatures from religion and mythology and talks about how the ideas of those creatures has evolved over time and they've turned into pop culture characters. So you can find all that great stuff exclusively on Nebula. And a year of Nebula is already a steal at $60 a year. That is $5 a month. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut, you can get Nebula for just $2.50 a month. That is $30 for the year. It's an awesome deal. Go check it out. I guarantee there is a creator you already love who's part of Nebula. And if you spend some time on Nebula, I bet you'll find your new favorite creator. After me, of course. Your second favorite creator, because I'm your favorite. Don't correct me. Again, that is go.nebula.tv/thenandocut. This is taking a break from the Spider Noir cover. I think I'm going to do one big Spider Noir wrap-up video, because I don't think every episode from now on will work on its own. And then I do want to do a spoiler video for this one, maybe after I've seen it a second time. That's all I got. Stay safe. I'll see you around.